This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Do you want to stay up to date with the messiest drama on the internet? Or what about those crazy viral challenges? Then be sure to tune in to TMZ Verified, the podcast. I'm Wild.
I'm Steph.
And each week we're either breaking down the spicy viral stories or we're hanging out with the most popular influencers around. Tana Mongeau is in the building.
I don't even know if they're hating. They're probably just telling the truth, but we love the haters too.
Sophia Franklin.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk, but like, let's be real with each other, you know?
Bryce Hall is here, y'all. Make some noise, people.
I'm single, by the way.
Right.
So if you like viral drama, influencer culture, and just overall hot messiness, check out new episodes of TMZ Verified every Thursday right here on Spotify.
TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
Welcome to the Age of Jeremy. My name is Jeremy Quintanilla. I am here to talk about business, social media, marketing, e-learning, and more. Join me on my adventures to build generational wealth through business ownership and investment. I will share everything that I learn along the way. Before we get started, please make sure to subscribe to this podcast. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Age of Jeremy, TikTok at Age of Jeremy, Twitter at Age of Jeremy Q, and LinkedIn at Age of Jeremy. Also, I have a YouTube channel. You should check that out at, you guessed it, Age of Jeremy. If you want to chat, hit me up on Snapchat at Age of Jeremy. I know that was a lot of Age of Jeremys, but that's where you can get a hold of me, and I would love to talk with anybody who wants to reach out to me about business, social media, marketing, e-learning, and whatever other business, finance, insurance questions that you have. I just want to engage with people and make an amazing, amazing community. One of those amazing communities that I do have is our Addicted to Podcasting Facebook group. It's through my business, Age of Radio, and it is a place where content creators can come to share their projects, to learn from each other. Their audiences come to learn about the projects that they have, and we can just build an amazing community. So head on over to Facebook and type in Addicted to Podcasting, and you will find it. And it's free and open to everybody. I also want to mention that our NFT project, X Royalty, will be coming out soon, and the roadmap will be dropping shortly as well, I believe, if I read a WhatsApp message properly. So make sure to sign up at xroyalty.io. That's xroyalty.io. That link is in the episode description. This is our 3T Warrior Academy NFT, and it's incubated by one of our businesses, Collecti Labs. So make sure to follow Collecti Labs on Instagram and on Twitter. It is going to change the NFT game because, well, I can't really say much, but I will say this. It's going to change the NFT game because of utility. So if you listen to some of my social media posts, I believe that the number one term you are going to hear in the future will be utility as it relates to NFT and cryptocurrencies. So I'm telling you this, X Royalty is going to change the game when it comes to utility. So that being said, let's get this show on the road. My name is Jeremy Quintanilla. You are listening to Age of Jeremy. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm the co-founder of Age of Radio and 3T Fitness, and, well, other businesses that I am working on. This podcast is about everything that I learn and the trials and tribulations it took to learn them. I hope you enjoy. All right, so I have not put an episode out for a while because it has been hectic. We have been working on our Merlin project. And if you don't know what Merlin is, it's the smartest way to track your crypto. It's going to be changing the way in which people utilize exit strategies as it relates to their crypto investments. And we are going to change the game because we are doing something so amazing. And I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but it will be coming out soon. But because it's going to be doing something so amazing. I have been doing meetings after meetings with compliance groups, meetings after meetings with some special people that I'm not going to say who or what they are yet. And so if you want to get in on that, I know that we have a lot of projects going on, but go to merlincrypto.com and you can sign up. You get a free 30-day trial once the app is launched, and you get early access to that 30-day free trial by signing up. So stop what you're doing right now and go sign up at merlincrypto.com. And so because of that, I have been slacking on this podcast, which if you've ever listened to me ever, I'm always talking about consistency, but we're getting it back. I've also been really looking at a lot of social media and where my brand is going, and really trying to ramp up that brand and focus on my message of compassion, community building, social media, building brands, the marketing piece of it. You know, I kind of almost think of it sometimes a little bit like Gary Vaynerchuk, but I know our businesses are going to be different. But I really love the Gary V or Gary Vaynerchuk energy. And because of that, I've been looking at him and kind of seeing what are some of the things that he does really well. What are some of the things that I think that he could do better? What are some of the things that I want to replicate into what I'm pushing out there into the world? And the one thing that I'm trying not to do is to get stuck in this social media environment where we're saying outlandish things just to get people to follow us or to get that attention. Now, I do believe that clickbait's really important, and to utilize, don't lie to people with the clickbait, but you want the click. You want people to click on your stuff, so it needs to be outlandish, and that's something that I've been really looking at. But one of the things that I've really been finding is LinkedIn has just been a fantastic place. I've been doing a lot more stuff on LinkedIn, and that's why I'm really trying to push people to LinkedIn, because they have a lot of features, a lot of options that I don't think people are taking advantage of for their personal brands, right? And so, because you have your personal brand that you need to be working on and continue to grow and continue to build, and those brands, if those personal brands get so large, you can really make money very, very quickly once you offer a product, because you have those years and years and years of trust. And that's something that I've really been focusing on and thinking about a lot. And I've been putting a lot of energy into that. So I'm going to continue to do that. But along with that, providing value through this podcast and value through my YouTube channel. So I've really become more efficient with my time, because my day traditionally starts at about 6:30 in the morning. I'm working, depending on if I decide to go to the office in Mesa or if I stay here. I'm usually working from roughly 7 or 8 in the morning, or 7 or 8:30 in the morning, depending on what day it is, till about 3 in the afternoon to 7 at night, depending on what day it is, taking a small break in the afternoon and then working again in the evening, depending on what meetings we have. So I want to say I, on average, do about 12 hours a day. Some days I'll push to 14 hours. And then on the weekends, I've been pulling a lot back and spending more time on me and family and resting and working out, trying to build, how I look on social media, how I am perceived on social media, trying to get some of my weight down, trying to really focus on that stuff, because, as we move into 2023, our brand is going to be really, really big, and it would be remissive of me, or it would be ridiculous of me. I don't know if remissive was the right word, or ridiculous of me to not to capitalize on that, because millions and millions of eyes are going to see me. So I want to make sure that my brand is good, because again, if I have a really big long-term strategy of sitting on boards for like Adobe, sitting on boards for Microsoft, being a part of those companies, being a part of family business governance conversations in the future, and where the world and economy is going is where I want to go. And so a big part of that is that personal brand. So I've really been focusing on it. And again, I will share all the stuff that I'm doing on this, just like why I'm saying I've been posting a lot on LinkedIn. And I've been trying to do my TikToks every day, my Instagram every day, taking some cool things from Instagram that through green screen products and images and putting them out there and saying emotional things, making things fun, right? And trying to find, the thing about me is I like things that are fun and geeky and nerdy, and I'm trying to implement those things within the social media content that I put out there while providing value and sharing things with people. And that's what I'm really focused on. So that being said, it's not that I haven't been thinking about you guys, thinking about the podcast. I love talking to the people that listen to this consistently, or love talking to the people that listen to this consistently, and working on making this better and getting it found to more and more people. And one of the ways it can get found is if you can take some time to subscribe to the podcast. If you're listening to it, write a review, because that allows it to go up further in the algorithms. And then I'll be working on some other brand stuff about the podcast itself. So that being said, I want to let you know that this episode is a Twitter Spaces. Besides LinkedIn, if I don't know what's going to happen with Elon Musk now owning Twitter and what he's going to do, but I am a very big fan of Twitter Spaces. So on our Age of Radio channel at Age of Radio or at Age of Radio on Twitter, we are focusing on doing more spaces through there. And so because of that, we are, I'm taking those and putting them on this podcast for right now. And so this is a conversation that we had about starting a podcast network, because that if you were really in a podcast, I believe that everybody could have a podcast network. Everybody should have a podcast network, because that is a tight knit community, especially if you don't do it from like a corporate standpoint, the way that we do it on Age of Radio, right? If it's you and your friends, you have a bunch of podcasts, you should brand that as your guys' network and push that out there. And so in this Age of Radio Twitter Spaces, there is some audio difficulties with it. So I do apologize. I'm going to be working on that as we do more of these, because this is the first one. And then another one's probably going to come out right after this. And then I'll have some more podcasts where it's me teaching and training and, my normal podcast, and then see if we can get some other guests on here. So, so this one's about starting a podcast. Joey's on it. Nerds with Friends ends up coming into the Twitter Spaces for a little bit. Again, the audio is a little weird. Do your best. I appreciate it. I love it. I love you for listening through it the entire way. And so, I hope that you enjoy it and you get a lot of value at it. And please, reach out to us on Twitter, leave us a comment of what you think. Would really appreciate that too. So without further ado, here's that conversation.
Hey, Joey, how are you? Can you give me a heart or a like if you can hear this, sir? Just want to make sure that this mic is working, that I have connected to my phone. If not, I will disconnect it. Joey, if you could. Yep. Okay. So looks like the sound is picking up. So I guess we will go ahead and get started. I want to introduce myself. So a little bit of what we want to talk about during this space today is I want to introduce myself. I want to talk a little bit about how Age of Radio got into doing a podcast network, some of the great things about having a podcast network, some of the great things about having a podcast in general, and then also being able to talk about how, if you want to start a podcast network, what are some things that you can do? How do you go about that? And then we would love, there's lots of people that have been doing podcasts a lot longer than I have, and maybe a lot longer than Joey has. And we want to be able to learn from you. So we'll maybe give you the opportunity to speak and ask questions. And again, knowing that this is the very first spaces that we're doing, and we're doing it at not the best opportune time during the day, since spaces are going on right now and people are working on Friday. But this was just to get us in the habit of doing it, which we'll talk about a little bit about doing certain things to build your tribe as well, hopefully as a part of this, because that's all part of having a podcast. And it's also all part of growing a business or growing a community. So to kind of start this off, my name is Cesar Jeremy Quintanilla. I go by Jeremy. I am a business owner and entrepreneur. I am the co-founder, majority owner of Age of Radio, also the chief executive officer of Age of Radio. And if you're asking yourself, what is Age of Radio? Well, Age of Radio is a media company that focuses on providing products and services that helps people and brands tell their stories. Myself, I love stories. I love listening to the interesting things that people go through, that companies go through, that people go through, and we want to try to make it easier for people to get access to those stories, such as something through podcasting, where podcasting, I think I was reading last night, has over 130 million episodes that are out there in the world. And so it's very hard to be kind of seen in the podcasting space, which is the reason why I originally started Age of Radio. It has over 130 million episodes that are out there in the world. And so it's very hard to be kind of seen in the podcasting space, which is the reason why I originally started Age of Radio. And so you can look at Age of Radio by going to ageofradio.com or ageofradio.org. And you can see that we do have a plethora of podcasts that are really focused on independent broadcast producers. We do some shows of ourselves, but for the most part, we are trying to build the largest network of independent podcast hosts. And that's one of our main goals and objectives, because what's great about podcasting is anybody, especially now with all of the software software that's available for people to get up and running and making a podcast. Anybody should be able to make a podcast very easy now, and everybody has something that they can share out into the world, and we want to make sure that what is getting shared out into the world is from people and not just necessarily always from businesses. When we have out into the world is from people and not just necessarily always from businesses. When we have podcasts ranging from everything from true crime to one of our most popular podcasts is Texas History Lessons. And that's just, lessons in the history of Texas, just like it sounds. And so we find that that giving the ability for anybody to have that voice and helping them share that voice has helped to grow us over the off and on 5 years that I've been focusing on building Age of Radio. And let me explain a little bit about why it's been off and on for 5 years, to kind of tell the story about how we got into doing the podcast and how we got into doing podcasting as a network. So I own a very prominent company called 3T Warrior Academy. Started it with a gentleman by the name of Coach JV, and he is an influencer and he's an educator in the crypto space and economic space. So if you go over to say TikTok, type in CJV_, you can see him. We have 1.2 million followers on TikTok. We have about 10,000 followers here on Twitter for CJV. And then between his and our 3T Warrior Academy Instagram, we have about, I want to say, 50, 60, 70, or 80,000 followers. And then we also have our YouTube channel that's coming up here on 100,000 subscribers soon. And essentially what that business does is it focuses on helping people get motivated, get healthy, get their mindset right, and then create generational wealth through either cryptocurrencies or other non-traditional assets. And by that, I shouldn't say that, because we do have courses involving how to day trade inside of our academy. But essentially, people pay us a monthly subscription fee. They get access to our group in a thing called Mighty Networks. And in Mighty Networks, we are able to have courses and communication, like a Facebook group type of thing, but you can have courses and different groups, subgroups within there. And one of the groups that I teach in there is our business group. Help people do entrepreneurial things, learn about business, and so forth. And so when we were starting that company out back in 2017, it was originally started as a company called JV Impacts. And please excuse me, my allergies are really bad this morning. I've had two Zyrtec or two Claritin, one of those two. Zyrtec, maybe? Zyrtec or Claritin. I've had two Zyrtec or Claritin, and I have had Flonase, and my allergies are still killing me. So again, please excuse my allergies. And so we have been able to, actually give me 1 second here. Just going to do this. Just going to send out a tweet again so people know that this is available for them to listen to. And so when we started JV Impacts in 2017, we started it as just a podcast, and we thought we were going to be like, Lewis Howes or Every Day is Saturday. Those were some of the. Every Day is Saturday was a really big podcast back then that we listened to, or we thought maybe we could be Joe Rogan's or whatever the case is. And so we're still on the path to be doing those things. And Coach JV is definitely on the path to be doing those things. And the podcast that he has, it's called Motivation, Health, and Life. And so in that podcast, it's a daily podcast where we talk everything from, fitness and health to wealth and economics and everything. Anyway, and it's a daily podcast Monday through Friday to kind of get you up and going in the morning. So we started that podcast, but when we thought we did it and we thought it was just going to blow up, I'm assuming that's how a lot of people think when they do it. And so what we found was we needed to maybe work with a network or partner with someone. But what I found out at that time is most companies, and they still do this to the most part, a lot of networks, they won't work with you or care about you until you get, 10 to 20,000 downloads a month. And I was like, well, that's stupid. There's tons of great opportunities out there for people to share their stories. And we want them to be able to have access to share and grow their podcasts. And so what we did was we partnered with a company which is now owned by Spotify called Megaphone. And they took a chance on us because we didn't have downloads, but I explained to them what I was trying to do. And they gave us an opportunity. Now it's open, much more open to more people. But at that time, when it was owned by a company called Graham Holdings Company, they're the founders of it, and then they owned a company at the time also called Slate Podcasts, and or they owned Slate. Slate, the Graham Holdings owned the company Slate, which is very popular. And they also had Megaphone. Well, Spotify ended up buying Megaphone, and the jury's still out on whether that, in my opinion, was the best decision for Megaphone, but that's my personal opinion. Nothing against Spotify or anything, or Graham Holdings Company. And so when we did win, anyways, Megaphone let us do that. So what I did was it allowed us to get a lower cost to have other podcasts be on it. Because at the time, you had to pay to play, and you still do to some extent for the data and the story or the hosting of the podcast on servers. So Libsyn was too expensive, and Burberry at the time, not Burberry. Libsyn. It was Libsyn, and I forgot the other one, but they were just too expensive for us at the time, and so we figured that we wouldn't. We needed something else. So when we found Megaphone, it's much less expensive in the long run to have tons of shows on. And what's also great about Megaphone, because it's designed for networks, you can have networks under your network, and so that's how we had Joey come along and create the Geek Collective, which is a sub network, the Age of Radio, that just focuses on things that you geek out about. That could be anything really, but it's just like more niches about things that are just about that specific thing, like comics, games, types of games, movies, things of that nature. And so from that, we built out our networking where people come on. They come on for free. They get to be able to host with us. We work to advertise their show. We work to find advertisers for their show, and that's how that journey started. Finally, at the end of 2018, when we started doing that, or maybe at the end of 2019, I'm not sure. So the problem was, because I do have multiple business, it has ebbs and flowed over time. But Joey's helped us grow that. I have three amazing women that help me with it. One is named Jackie, Priscilla, and Ruthie, and they help us do the statements, and they help us do, when I need to create content. But as we've been working to grow this podcast network, we've been working to grow it through making the community stronger. So we also have our Facebook groups, Addicted to Podcasting, where anybody can join, and that's just designed for content creators to come in and share their creations. And inside of that Facebook group, we have a thing called Showcase, which is where I find someone or anybody can come up into the platform during a StreamYard Live, and we talk about their projects and things that they have going on and so forth. And so we try to do that every other week, for the most part, try to get it going, and we will continue to have that showcase. And then we also have our Discord group, which we're trying to work on. So essentially, we are trying to, part of Age of Radio is trying to build the largest free for anybody to join, for independent podcasters to do it. And so the reason why I call this How to Start a Podcast Network is because I think that we make a lot of things too complicated, and we make things too much, when we can be doing certain things that that we stay consistent with. And that's one of the rules of content creation. So what I mean by that is that everybody could and should have a podcast if they have something to say. Now, the reason why things don't grow with a podcast is because there is too many podcasts out there, and people are vying for people's attention. So you have to do something, one, that sets your podcast apart, or two, you need to create something that sets your thing apart. And I'm going to bring up a great example of this. There's a podcast network called Rum Runners. It's RUMRUNNAS, and they were part of Age of Radio. They have a show called Talk Shonen. They have Rum Runners, and then they have Dark Rum, I think is what the other one is. And so they branched off and kind of started their own network. They joined a different network that worked out better for them, and then they have the Rum Runners network underneath that. And so from that, they've been able to have specific shows that are more niche shows that they have, that then they go out and advertise for, and they advertise that in totality. And so to the point about the podcast network is creating the podcast network is just trying to find a group of people or a group of shows that have an underarching theme that then you can go out and advertise against, and try to get people into that specific niche. And so when you are doing that, though, the problem arises from content creators is that they don't stay consistent long enough, because they think that all of these things are going to happen so fast or so quickly, and they don't. And so when you start out to have a podcast, the number one thing that you should always be doing is just trying to stay on a schedule. Perfect example, I have my podcast, Age of Jeremy, that comes out every Tuesday. Where I suck at is because I do have multiple businesses besides Age of Radio and 3T Warrior Academy. I get bogged down by doing some work during the week, and I can't get my podcast out. That's a failure and inefficiency on my behalf for setting off time to do my podcast and making sure that I am getting it out there to everybody. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that So that's the consistency part, right? So you're not going out there and doing it on a consistent basis for a long enough period of time. That's the first thing. Second thing is then you don't look at what you're doing, look at the things that are going good within that podcast, right? So look at some of the episodes that did really, really well. The best episode that I've ever had since we switched over to Megaphone has been a podcast I did just talking specifically about how Ethereum, the cryptocurrency, actually works and how cryptocurrency works. That's the most popular podcast, right? And so at the time, that was some of the most popular things. So rather than veering off on some of the things that I have, I went ahead and changed kind of what my topics were, right? Just because I like doing my podcast for no purpose. But if I were trying to really focus on growing that podcast, I would have then looked at some more cryptocurrency things because that was hot, and then share my knowledge of that because that would then push up a lot of a lot more of those podcast episodes, right? And so those are the two things to get that podcast going. Is kind of that consistency. People don't stay with it long enough. They think that they're owed something just because they do the podcast, and they're not. Secondly, they don't have the ability to relook at what was doing well and then replicating the things that they did well, right? And so those are the first two problems that arise with content creators and podcasters, is they don't do it long enough and they don't relook at what they're doing. And so the next thing that you can do after that is find out how to partner with other people to help grow that show. And so actually Joey just came up to the mic. I'm just going to ask you, Joey, and if you don't want to answer this, I understand. I was just curious because you do this really well. You partner with a lot of people, and I think that's one of the key things at the beginning of trying to start some type of network in general, and a podcast network. So when you started out in podcasting, when you did the House of Indie all the time, and I know you do Wednesday Warriors Live, and you have a PR, Geek Collective has a PR division now, but when you were just focusing on your podcast, how did you focus on networking and creating a network of people that you did podcasting with?
That's a great question. So creating a community is actually, let me take it back before that, because that's kind of what I did, right? I created this community. I created this, or I joined communities and all that stuff, and that all of that kind of helps you, grow organically. But the very first thing that I did was when I was trying to figure out what I wanted a podcast about, because I knew that I wanted to do this, right? I had something to say and I wanted to get it out there. So I had to go back and find out the identity of the podcast and the community that would live in, right? So when I did that and I did my research and I did my homework on that, I kind of got an idea of, okay, I have to go and be part of this, like I do comic book creator interviews. So before I did that, I immersed myself into the community. I friended a bunch of comic creators. I liked all their stuff. I brought up conversations, created this organic thing around me. And then the podcasting thing just kind of like fell into my lap. And I just, went out and did it. So I think this community and creating the identity of your podcast and what you want to say is key to getting collaborators and getting people to talk with you about the things that you love.
Yeah, absolutely, Joey. And sorry about that. I was just going to try to put this link in our Addicted to Podcasting Facebook group. Again, I've been on a bunch of spaces. We have I have part of our 3T Warrior Academy. We have a show called Good Morning Crypto. They do spaces every Thursday evening, I believe it is. But I've never done the full hosting of one. So I was like, oh, I need to go and probably share this with some people. So I wanted to try to get them in there. But because we'll be doing these more often now. And I wasn't expecting too many people to jump on this one because we are still growing that, and that's the main focus. But yeah, that's a good point. Everything that you said about immersing yourself in the community, and I think that's one of the things that actually helped us when we were doing our podcast network. The first podcast that we had, I believe, was its company. It was called Learning to Curse. But then those people knew this person named Nikki, an Angel, who had a very popular podcast called Color Me Dead. So we went and talked to them, told them the idea. They were on board. And then from their connections, we got Home Video Hustle and Dark Windows and all these other people. And so at the first, it was interesting because it all started like we found all this true crime and movie stuff. And then you ended up finding about us from a simple Google search at the time, which is fantastic because you never think when you're starting out on a business that that's really how people are going to find you, but then they do. And then we started talking, and then you introduced us to more of the comic book podcast, and more of the nerd, like the geek type of podcast. And so we just kind of continue to grow from there, because Age of Radio is a network. We don't have any real niche. We are doing just our goal. If we do have a niche, that niche is we want to empower independent podcast creators, to help them either grow their show and hopefully eventually make money with their show. And so from there, once you build that network, you can then focus on creating your own podcast network. And one of the great things about Age of Radio is we allow you to create sub networks under us and come into our infrastructure to create those types of podcast networks. But if you go out on your own, what you need to do is find a platform like Megaphone. There is another platform that iHeartRadio owns called Spreaker. They bought Spreaker, and then Spreaker has a platform that's similar to Megaphone. I think it's VoxNest or Dynamo or something along those lines. I can't remember it off the top of my head. And then those things allow you to have the shows underneath the actual networks and keep it organized, and then you can go out there and share your things. And those things allow you to, one of the other things about having the podcast network and going out and advertising it as a podcast network is that it shows that you're trying to build this thing that has to do with a specific, category or thing, but then also you are going out there and showing that you're larger than just a one show. And that can help create a sense of, I want to say, ubiquity, or a sense that you're larger than you actually are, which is always a really good thing as long as you could support when things take off, which is where I have failed at 2 times with Age of Radio. Once in 2020, Joey was really focused on, or maybe 2021, no, 2020. In 2020, Joey was super focused on getting shows onto the network, and we grew too fast. And then we grew too fast again towards the end of 2021. And so 2022, I took a step back because I was able to, our 3T Warrior Academy business was really growing. And from taking that step back, I was able to look and see about all of the things that need to be better about Age of Radio. And that's what we're trying to do right now.
You said, okay, Joey, get to work. And I said, you got it. And I didn't stop.
That's exactly what happened. And so now, Joey has the Geek Collective. In fact, Joey, I think now would be a really good time. I'm going to go tweet. I'm going to go send this link into the Twitter. Do you want to tell people about the Geek Collective and some of the stuff that you have going on?
Sure, yeah. So just like Jeremy said, the Geek Collective grew out of something that was, just supposed to be me and my friends and my buddies just hanging out and talking, right? So we all came from another podcast network, right? And we kind of branched off to do our own thing. And my buddy at the time, he was already kind of doing his own thing, started his own podcast network. And he's actually the host of Texas History Lessons, who houses their podcast on Age of Radio, and it's one of our most popular podcasts on the network. But before that, he created the 143 Podcast Network, and his name is Michael Sparky Sparkman, and he's an amazing person, the most humble human being that you can ever meet, right? So what was really cool is that he created this thing. He named it 143 Podcast because he had the Mr. Rogers' philosophy where 143 it means the I love you, and he just wanted to create something with love, right, and something to kind of give back to community, and something just something pure. So I love that. So I became part of his, and but he didn't want to manage the network. He just wanted to have it there and to have his buddies on the network and just kind of do things. So I had a little bit more knowledge with podcasting, since I came on with Age of Radio and talking with Jeremy and stuff like that. So Jeremy kind of gave me a little bit of background information on how to run a network and all that stuff. So I was learning at that point. So I was kind of helping Sparky manage his network as well. And he said, one day he's like, hey, I got something serious to talk to you about. And he ended up transferring ownership over to me for the 143 Podcast Network. And Jeremy and I spoke about it, and Jeremy agreed to invest into the network and the things that we had, because we kind of planned out we had this really cool plan, and that now it's starting to kind of take form. Some of the things that we talked about when we talked about. So Jeremy ended up taking part ownership into the network, and we rebranded as the Geek Collective. And what we wanted to do with that was we wanted to collect a bunch of comic book or geek culture podcasts to come on and kind of share the same kind of philosophies that we had, which is a podcast network should be free. We don't have to have 20,000 downloads to make money off of this thing. You should be 100% owner of your show, and and you should be able to, have, not no censorship over anything, unless you think you're creepy and illegal. That's different story. But so we wanted that to kind of be the philosophy of the Geek Collective, because we wanted people to just do this for fun and enjoy this. So we created this, and we had plans to create a geek culture network. Basically, we wanted a podcast that where people could come in and hang out and listen to some amazing things, right? So the Geek Collective is, we started out small. We created this thing, and now we have, not only do we have, we help with podcasters to bring them on, we also market your show. We will also, um, advertise it and all that good stuff. We also have a public relations arm now, where we are working with comic book creators specifically, because when I came on, I had the House of Indie, which was my comic book podcast where I interviewed comic book creators. So I kind of got a nice, email list of, working comic book creators, indie, some that are working in the big two right now as well. So we created this network and this, community with the comic book community and the creators, and just, a relationship and friendship with them. So comic book public relations kind of just fell into our lap, just like a podcast network fell into our lap, where we were already doing some of these things. And we've decided, let's just, people are already asking us to advertise, and the only thing we can offer them is ads on Age of Radio or the Geek Collective. So we wanted to do more to get their stories out into people's hands, right? So Kickstarter is really huge right now for comic books. Through 2020, there was during the pandemic, during the height of the pandemic in the summer, there was 800 to 1,000 comic book go live on Kickstarter during the 2-month period, and it was one of the biggest booms of Kickstarter for the comic book community. So what was amazing about that is a lot of the sorry, Jeremy is asking me to accept co-host. There we go.
Yeah, I was going to try something, and in case I got kicked off, I didn't want it to end the whole.
Yeah, cool. So anyway, so in 2020, that was a big year for comic books on Kickstarter. It was a big year for podcasters, because people started creating podcasts. They had a lot to say, so that's when I went into high gear, bringing shows onto the network. And yeah, Jeremy's right. We grew real quick, real fast, but what's amazing about this stuff is now we offer, Age of Radio is now a Geek Collective is a media company who offers marketing, public relations to comic book creators. We also have a podcast arm as well now, so we also advertise that. We also help you guys advertise on the network. So we have all that stuff. I also went on to work for the EXP, which is the Comic Book Shopping Experience, which is a live streaming network. So anybody who's on our network who has a live show, we can work to get you guys onto. But here we go. We're talking about consistency, right, Jeremy? You said one big huge thing that podcasters and creators are, content creators find hard and difficult is consistency, right? And with being a part of that network, that live streaming network, you have to have a consistent weekly episode coming out, because they also offer advertising as well, and they have we got who used to work in TV and film, so we have some really great people that are behind the scenes running this stuff very professionally, like a broadcast network would. So so we have all kinds of cool stuff and all kinds of people that we currently work with. We also have TikTokers that are part of the network. We have comic book journalists like Book Yeti, Wednesday Geek Network all have podcasts on the Geek Collective. So we have all that cool stuff. So we created this amazing thing out of just a bunch of group of buddies just wanting to talk about comics on a network, man. So now we're doing it, Jeremy, and we're here to stay. This one thing that I do say about podcasting is never stop, and never let anybody stop you. I've had people try to cancel me, because of podcasting. I didn't stop, and this is now here we are creating something amazing for the community, and we're here to stay.
Thank you, Joey. The one thing that I do want to add on to that is that, well, one, I want to ask you something real quick, Joey. I connected a different mic to my phone. Is it
Okay.
sounding echoey or anything, or does it sound clear?
That sounds clear. You're good, dude.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the echo is just because I'm listening to myself talk.
I do hear
And
your dog.
so
I do hear the dog in the background, but you're
yeah,
good.
yeah,
It's
you
all good.
can. Yeah, he
That's what
won't
these
stop
spaces are
freaking
for,
barking
man.
at all. Yeah, right. So I wanted to say the one thing that I heard you talk about a lot in what you were saying was about community, and I can't stress that enough. That with all of the businesses that I specifically have, everything's always been about community, and so with one of the great things about the world that we live in is even though I know we give it a lot of we I guess say sometimes that maybe we need to be less involved with technology and more in front of people. Well, the thing that I find about technology is that because I work so much, like I actually have most of my closest friends that I communicate with through social media because I don't get to go and see them often and I don't get to go and hang out with them. But because of technology, we're able to hang out with them more often. And that's one of the reasons why I like Discord a lot and I like Facebook groups. And so when you have your podcast, you have a group of people that are listening to that podcast. 4 people, it may be 10,000 people, but having a place where they can come and learn more about the thing that you were talking about in your podcast, whether that's true crime, whether it's me and I talk about e-learning and video games and all kinds of stuff that doesn't really have a niche, but or like or you talk about video games, having a place where you present other content and new content, like in a Facebook group or in a Discord, is one of the greatest things that you can do. Because what you want when you're building any type of network or community is you want the ability to have people trust you. So one, don't do anything that's untrustworthy, be a good person, right? And then secondly, build up the value that you're providing them through your podcast, through other content that you're creating. And then when there is a time that there is an ask that you have, whether that ask is for something that you're selling, whether that ask is for something that you just want them to do or to give to, like a nonprofit or something, you go to that community and you ask them and they will do it because of all of that free value and content and community that you've spent so many years to build with them. And so that just takes a lot of time, which goes back to your other thing, that people lack sometimes the consistency. There is my business partner, other business partner, John, Coach JV or CJV. He had, I think we calculated it once that it took us, I want to say 800 doesn't sound, yeah, maybe it is about 800 TikToks before anybody started recognizing who he was or something along those lines, and then doing 2 to 3 YouTube videos a day to get our YouTube thing to grow. And he would do that day in and day out, day in and day out. And that's
Yeah,
the thing
it's
about the
rough, man.
consistency. Yeah.
It's rough. Like one of the big things that I do is and I'll sit here sometimes because with the public relations that I'm doing now is part of the job that I do is I wake up and I check in with the comic book creators and I say, hey, how you guys doing? Where we at? Check the if they have a live Kickstarter going right now. I'll check the stats. I'll check how we did overnight. All those kind of things. I reach out to them, right? And then what I'll do is I'll go in there and just like you said, I'll have to post like straight for 2 hours nonstop almost about the same exact thing, coming up with different kind of copy to write in those ads and push them out throughout all my social media, throughout all their social media. If they have like everything that I can get my hands on, I'll even write press releases. And that is the only way that I start to see, the needle move, So what that means to me is I'm saying you have to put the work in. You have to continue to grind, and it can be difficult when you have a job, right? Or when you have multiple businesses, or when you have to be, with your kids, or change a diaper, or help your wife, and things of that nature. So it's really difficult because we have this can become a job, right? So the thing is balance as well. It's really difficult to find balance when you have a day job, you have a family, and you're trying to do a podcast, and the podcast really isn't making any money for you, right? And you're just like, that's when the doubt comes in and all that stuff. But you just power through that. Just don't ever look at the numbers. It's really hard to not look at the numbers, but and we have some podcasters that are doing very very well right now. Like we have Blake's Buzz on the Geek Collective, and he does very good with the community. He's got a great following. He's got some amazing people that are always communicating with him and going back and forth with him. But the numbers are not converting that to listens or what have you. So the conversion rate of the impressions that when the show goes out um, is higher, but then the conversion rate from the reach to actual people who are actually clicking, downloading, and listening is super low. And when you look at the numbers like that, it can be kind of a little bit, and you can get a little discouraged. But that's why you just got to power through it, and it can get a little difficult. So maybe I digress there, Jerry, but I kind of got some
Yeah,
stuff out.
no, you bring up a really good point, and I do have I did want to kind of end this close to 9:45, but there's a few things that I want to say, and then see if Richard or Nerds with Friends has anything that they want to ask or add, because Nerds with Richard, I believe, Richard, I'm so sorry, you have one of your comic book you do stuff with Comic Book Yeti, or you are Comic Book Yeti, one of those two. I'm so sorry. And so I do want to give you guys the opportunity to speak if you would like. And then I wanted to add that to what you were saying was the other problem is that podcasting got oversaturated right before we started into podcasting, because you had some really crazy acquisitions that took place, like Spotify and iHeartRadio went and tried to buy up like everything over the last 6 years or 7 years. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing or a good thing. I'm just as a business, as a CEO, and as a company, I'm just staying moot on that entire thing. Maybe through some posts, you can kind of see how I stand on some of that stuff. But my rule for businesses that I'm part of is all the people that are helping me build it, I want them to all be able to live off of the thing that they're doing, because I would rather we all have, say, $1 million than the owner of the company or the CEO of the company have $10 or $20 million, because in my opinion you guys are the closest things to friends that I have as far as a social life for the people on the network and on here. And I'm trying to bridge a lot of that gap and have a stronger community with that. But so what you were saying with Blake's Buzz is the other thing too, is that because of all that saturation, and then everything slowly started moving into video centric. So I think that the podcasts also aren't growing to the extent that they are, is because there's so much saturation within the podcasting market. So you have to build outside of the community very, very strongly, and then get them to buy in and go over and listen to the podcast. And some people even today still are not uneducated on even how to podcast, where to listen to podcasts. Twitter has this amazing thing. It's not very easy to find, but you can listen to podcasts via Twitter. They have podcasts on here now. And so so a lot of people just don't know, they don't get it, they can't get it, and it's easy. They like to watch the video, and YouTube is just like so apparent. So I think that's also part of it, is that building that community so that you can share your podcast and the projects that you're working on. And that's one of the biggest things that I'm trying to, and here at Age of Radio, Joey, Priscilla, Ruthie, myself, two other people that we've added to the team, Josh and Dustin, they own a media company that they're coming in to help us with some stuff. And then we have software developers that are going to help us start developing our own stuff here. And so one of the things is that our goal is to make those things easier and be able to get that outreach to people more. And that's what we're really, really focused on over the next 5 to 10 years to become our house in that avenue of the space.
Fantastic. So Jeremy, before we head out, can you give everybody a look forward to the future of Age of Radio and Geek Collective and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I will. Let me just do this one thing, and then I'll do that, and then we'll head out. Nerds with Friends or Richard, did you have anything that you want to add? If you do, please ask to be able to speak, and I can go ahead and give you that right or ability. And if not, then I will go ahead and wait a few moments, and then I'll end it. So if you want to speak while I'm saying any of this, just go ahead and ask for the permissions. Oh, here we go. All right, cool. All right. Hey, how's it going?
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't listening. What were you guys saying? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, so let's start over. I'm just kidding.
No, I just wanted to say hi to Jeremy, because I think this is the first time we've spoken. I know we've been part of Age of Radio for a couple of years now. I wonder if
yeah, something along those lines. Yep. It was when Joey went on his, I think it was back in 2020-ish, because I think that's when Joey went on his really big hunt to get podcasts. And that's when I think that you came on.
It was most
or 2021 something. Yeah.
Pre-COVID for sure.
Yeah, I think it was 2019.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened.
Well, cool.
I wonder if those two had anything to do with each other. I don't know.
I think that they did. I think Joey was responsible for it.
What's probably so what's funny about that is Nerds with Friends were brought on before I even thought about bringing any other podcasts onto the Geek Collective. And I was like, "Ooh, I really want these guys on my network, but I'm not sure if I'm going to bring any more shows on, because at that point we only had like 5 shows on our network, and they were basically all mine. And so I brought them on to Age of Radio, and I think I regret it every single day now, because they are amazing. They got some great shows. So if you guys haven't listened to them, make sure you guys are subscribing to Nerds with Friends.
Oh, stop! Go on, man. Say more. No,
Yeah,
just say, hi, and I'm excited. Excited to hear that you guys are trying to grow, and hopefully we can grow within as well.
Yep, that's hopefully the plan. That's hopefully the plan. Yes, or that is the plan. That will happen. Yes.
Yeah, and if you guys have any guests on our side that you'd like us to interview, let us know. Comic book creators as well. Being a failed artist, I would love to speak to people who've actually made it. It'd be kind of cool and just rub it in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I've definitely got a handful of creators that I can funnel to podcasters if they're looking for interviews. Like, even if they're off of our network, I would definitely be open to letting you guys interview my creators. No problems at all. Like, let's get the word out there. This is the community, right? We want this stuff into people's hands.
Yeah. Also, if any of you guys have any connections for San Diego Comic-Con for press badges, we wouldn't be upset if you guys could get it. That would be
that's actually on my list here for this next year, is to be more prominent in at least from the Geek Collective part, more prominent in the different conventions, not only for comic books, but also for podcasts, so like podcast movement. That's one of the big things that I'm trying to push here going into back into this year and then into next year. So we will definitely work on that and see how we can help the content creators that are part of Age of Radio. And then the other thing too is we're working on every other month having a webinar for all the hosts to be able to come in and communicate with me directly, so you guys can tell me all of the things that need to be better. That we can continue to work on. So I'm hoping, or my goal is to really tight-knit hosting community and not grow, maybe not try to get as many, not to say that we won't take people on that shows that want to be part of the network, because that's what we will always do, but to really focus on building the community and the networks with the shows that we currently have, and then trying to get their numbers to grow much stronger than we've had in the past. So
awesome. Hopefully you guys don't do what Podbean did. Like, we're all about indie creators, and then all of a sudden they start blowing up and they get bigger. Like,
no,
these indie creators. Who are you guys?
Yeah,
no, my number one goal is is all about indie creators, 1, and 2. That's the reason why we will never we create other avenues to create revenue. That revenue will be focused on growing Age of Radio, obviously, but we'll never get you guys to have to pay for anything. That's the goal. And then the other thing is for you to be able to be compensated, hopefully more and in larger amounts that are currently being stated now, for trying to get ads and to grow it. So our goal was never to utilize the host or the podcast to make money off of directly, only indirectly through the reach that we've created, right? So like we're already over 1 million downloads on the network in total this year, and so we'll outdo our downloads from last year. And so the goal is then to utilize that reach to make money, and then get that money over to the host. And then as we find other avenues to make money, increase the amount of money that you guys get from those ads. And so that's what we're really focused on.
And I'm going to say this to you guys right now. I don't get paid for everything that I do at Age of Radio.
He doesn't get paid anything at Age of Radio.
I get paid zero, and I do it out of absolute love for podcasting and for the community and for you guys. Like that's why I had to create and start charging for the promotions that I was doing for creators and stuff, because I wasn't taking any money for this. So yes, and that's also why we have not gone into active search for any new podcasts, because we're like, okay, we have 100 plus podcasts right now. We need to focus on growing them, making sure that they have a community, and making sure that we can teach them the things that we've learned, and then learn from them too. And that's the big thing. I saw Richard popped in as a speaker. Richard, do you want to say something?
I just wanted to clarify, I am not Comic Book Yeti.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, Richard. I only thought that because I was looking at posts the other day, and there was Comic Book Yeti that was part of a post that you did, and so I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I just wanted to clarify. No, they did I had another book come out a couple of weeks ago, and they did an interview with me and a review of the book. So that was the connection with them there.
Yeah,
nice. Yeah, Richard? Please feel free to let us know what book it is.
Richard's a comic creator, so yeah.
Yes, I am the creator of at this point 259 books, because I am a workaholic. The latest book was a book called Shed. We did a Kickstarter for it through Box Comics, which ended last week with 600% funding. And that'll be available on Blue Fox Comics website after it goes out to backers and things. And then I have a weekly webcomic, 6 pages a week, that just wrapped up its first season of 12 issues, called Haunted Hill, which is about a 35-year-old woman being a dirtbag in Hollywood, basically. And I also do the all-ages graphic novel series Black Sand Beach and Blastosaurus and Cardboardia. And I have a new book coming out in 2 weeks' time called Ghost, which I did when I was 7, about a ghost who struggles with invisibility and loneliness. And I have another book being announced next week from Fanbase Press called Four Color Heroes, which I'm not allowed to talk about yet, but I just did. So there you go.
Thank you, Richard. That's amazing. You have so much great stuff going on. And what I'll do too is I'll go look up some of the stuff that you mentioned here and then post that in our Age of Radio Twitter feed to throw some of that out there. And then I'm also recording this Twitter space, and I'll probably utilize it either to repurpose on our Age of Radio website at some point, and then also on my Age of Jeremy podcast. I'll have a replay too, so people will be able to hear it. So
yeah.
I feel seen after you gave me the log line for the Ghost.
It was. I look, it's a long, complicated story, but I genuinely thought no one in the world was making comics because I thought they didn't exist anymore because I lived in a country without comic book stores. And so as a 7-year-old, I thought if I was the only person in the whole world making comics, I'd become a millionaire. And so I blackmailed my school librarian to give me free photocopying and started producing these like little 8-page books about a ghost.
That is freaking awesome. That is so cool. That's a great story, Richard. That's awesome.
That's pretty punk rock.
That's so cool.
Thank you. I just popped in because it was a sort of seemed to be about podcasts, and I'm interested tangentially in them. I used to run a Ninja Turtles podcast years ago, and I always think it's a good.
Me too.
Really?
I had one too. Yeah, I did.
What was your one?
It was called Shell Shock.
It's a good title. Ours was called Too Much Ninja Turtles.
Oh, that's awesome.
TMNT for short.
Yeah.
We were trying to watch every episode of the original run, but specifically from the DVDs, and so a lot of it was about how difficult it was to get the DVDs from the different companies because they were such a fucking mess of different releases.
So what we were doing was we were starting from the beginning of the entire Ninja Turtles run and reading them and recapping them as adults.
That's really cool.
That is, yeah, I mean, most of ours was me just being angry about how much fucking nonsense there is from Splinter at all times on the show. Just like I remember being a kid, and this dude would show up and be wise and clever and kind of sexy, and now I'm an adult, and he's just like a weird old rat in his pajamas hiding out in the sewer for absolutely no reason.
That is amazing, Richard. That's awesome. Do you have that? Is that podcast still out for people to listen to anywhere?
No, there was a messy divorce at the end of it.
Got it. Cool. So yes, thank you so much, Richard. Yeah, we were talking a little bit about how we started our podcast network and some of the benefits of it, and then the focus on community. So I'll get this back out there and you can hear some of that stuff. We're also posted in our Age of Radio Facebook group. It's called Addicted to Podcasting. So if you want to head on over there, you can definitely join that, and I'll post it there as well. And then it'll also be on my space, and I think you'll be able to go back and listen to it here on Twitter if I'm not mistaken. So to kind of end this, as Joey was saying, some of the things that we're focused on. So the two biggest things that we're focused on is building our Discord group and our Addicted to Podcasting Facebook group to kind of make the community better. From a Discord perspective, if you are a podcast host that's on our Age of Radio network, we're building out a place where you can access our tutorials for the platform that we currently use, Megaphone, how to add in the ad inventory, how to do a lot of the stuff, because I was giving out a Megaphone document before Spotify purchased Megaphone, and we want it all to start coming from in-house. And then we're going to be utilizing different things like Twitter pod raids, that we can communicate via through how we're going to do that in Discord. There's a specific role that's inside of the Discord that's just for our podcast hosts, but then for anybody that's a content creator or any listener or audience that wants to come in and have that, you'll be able to have all kinds of different channels to communicate about different things inside of the Age of Radio Discord. And then on top of that, the next big thing while we're for our roadmap is to then be able to webhook all of the Age of Radio podcast shows inside of the Discord as they come out. So then that way people can be inside the Discord and have access to everybody's podcast through there as well. So that's the road. Those are the two biggest things that we're working on. Then the third biggest thing that we're really focused on, rather than bringing on tons of shows. Well, let me go back. From a community perspective, the other big thing is, like I had mentioned, we're trying to get webinars set up with the podcast host. There's 100 of them. I don't know. Well, there's more than 100 podcast hosts. There's 100 shows on the network. The problem is that it's very expensive to do a webinar with over 50 people. So I'm trying to figure out that piece in case everybody comes to it. Now, the likelihood that everybody's is going to come to it is very low, but I still want to be able to have a plan in place to do that. So then that way I can have more communication with the podcast host so they can say, this sucks, this needs to be better, you suck, you need to do better, because we're really about, you guys are our number one priority, because without you, we don't have anything, and we need to make that better. And then the after that, the next thing that we're really focusing on is our own podcast, not a podcast app, but our own app, to be able to do things like we're doing right here, where people can have direct access to their communities through some type of voice feature or live feature, the ability to have podcasts come in, focus on a block paid for Age of Radio exclusive podcast inside of there to help a podcast host grow and get more ad revenue from that. And then just to be a place for people to come and everything audio to compete with some of the larger people, like say the Spotify's of the world and the iHeartRadios of the world. The problem with that is that I do have another app that's from another business company that I have for a software company that's going to be coming out. It's called Merlin. It's a crypto tracking app that allows people to put in different types of exit strategies so they don't lose money in crypto, because crypto is very, very volatile. And so once they're done with that, they're going to help me build out this other app, and I'm slowly building the front end design on my own. So as far as a timeline of that, I do not have one yet, but the goal of these spaces and for my communication to our audience and to the Age of Radio followers and people is to communicate those things as we grow. So that's everything that we have going on. And then Geek Collective has they're going to be launching publishing part of it. And don't you say all that, because I don't want to steal your thunder. I'm doing it all.
I'm sorry, you cut out there for a second, so I didn't hear what you said.
I was saying, Joe, for the and I'm trying this Razer mic on this phone, so hopefully it's working well. You just signed on for Geek Collective. You just signed on a comic book that you're going to publish as far as books through the Kickstarter.
I'm sorry,
and I just wanted.
So yes. Yeah. Sorry. I think I heard what you said. So future of the Geek Collective.
You guys heard me.
Now,
I'm cutting out. So.
Yeah, cutting out. So.
Book. Hook up with Joey. That being said, I'll go ahead and end this 5 minutes late to a meeting. Be thankful, grateful, and kind, everybody. Love you guys. Thank you so much. And we will continue to grow Age of Radio.
All right, well, that does it for today's show. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you got a lot of great nuggets from that, or wisdom, I guess would be the best way to say it. Again, if you want to let me know anything, you can hit me up on Snapchat. I'm really trying to figure out the Snapchat thing. It's something I've been studying, not to get followers. I just want to have conversations with people on Snapchat, to be honest, because I think it's cool that you can just snap someone and do it. And it's something that I've always focused on Facebook and Instagram, and then TikTok, always overlooked Snapchat. So I'm really trying to focus on that. So follow me on Snapchat at Age of Jeremy. Tell me what you think of the podcast episode. And I think that would be great. Or you can hit me up on Twitter, wherever. It would be fantastic. I love talking with people and learning from people. So I would love it. Remember, be thankful, grateful, and kind. And we will talk with you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to The Age of Jeremy. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcatcher. If you can do me a favor, please rate this podcast if your podcatcher allows you to. Talk to you soon.
Okay, everybody, it's Michael E. Cullen II.
And I'm Sesame and Carta from the All Too Real 2 podcast. We're passionate about movies, TV, and pretty much all things pop culture.
Dive into the chaos of failed sitcoms, direct-to-video sequels, and the quirky realms of cinema and TV.
Join us every Thursday for your dose of All Too Real 2 entertainment.
We'll guide you through debates like whether Howard the Duck qualifies as a superhero.
Ponder if Larry the Cable Guy could be the new Rock or Schwarzenegger.
Discover if some shows and movies should have stayed in the cutting room.
Ever heard of a sitcom featuring that dictator with the funny mustache? Well, we watched it.
We're dedicated to unraveling the peculiarities of pop culture, sometimes with awesome guests.
So, if you're into the eccentric world of pop culture,
listen and subscribe to All Too Real 2.
Available wherever you find podcasts
and on Age of Radio.